Okay, so we all know enterprise AI is moving at a wild pace, right? But the real question is, how are the biggest companies actually using it? We're about to break down the latest report card from a KPMG survey of these giant billion-dollar companies, and honestly, one number in here tells a pretty shocking story.
Everything we're about to talk about really comes down to this single figure, a four-fold increase, 4x, in just this year alone. What on earth could have possibly grown that fast? And there it is, the number of large companies actually deploying AI agents. And just so we're clear, when we say agents, we're talking about tools that can autonomously go and perform complex tasks. This number didn't just grow, it quadrupled. We have officially flown past the experimental phase and are now in full-scale production. The speed is just stunning.
So this kind of crazy acceleration brings up two massive questions. First, how in the world did we get here so fast? And maybe more importantly, what's coming next? Let's dig in.
First up, to really get a handle on the how, we've got to look back at the story of the past year. It's really a journey, from companies cautiously dipping their toes in the water to just mass deployment.
This timeline really tells the whole story, doesn't it? If you look at the end of last year, only about 12% of companies had deployed agents. Most were just kind of poking around, exploring. But then, bam! First quarter of this year, things got serious. The number of companies piloting agents jumped to 65%. Then, in the second quarter, those pilots started to bear fruit, and deployment tripled. And that brings us to right now, where an incredible 42% of these major companies have AI agents up and running. That's the acceleration we're talking about.
And you know, this whole transformation, it didn't bubble up from the bottom. Nope. This was led from the very top. If we rewind to that fourth quarter, 57% of C-suite execs were already using generative AI tools themselves. Compare that to just 15% of entry-level folks. The push really came from leaders who saw the potential early on.
Okay, so the leaders were all in. But what about the employees on the ground? Well, that brings us to the second major part of this story, this dramatic cultural shift from widespread resistance to a really rapid acceptance of their new digital colleagues. Check this out. Just 1 quarter ago, nearly half, 47% of all employees were resistant to AI agents. That is a huge hurdle to overcome. But in just 3 months, that number was cut by more than half, all the way down to 21%. I mean, that is a massive cultural shift in an incredibly short amount of time.
So, why the huge drop in resistance? What happened? Well, it seems to come down to a few key things. Companies just got way better with their training and onboarding. And as that happened, employees started to have positive, hands-on experiences. They began to realize, hey, these agents are here to take on the boring, tedious parts of my job, not my whole job. That direct experience really just conquered that initial fear.
So now you've got agents deployed, employees are on board, and a whole new problem pops up. How do you actually measure the value of something this transformative? This has forced leaders to completely rethink the whole idea of return on investment. A massive majority of leaders are staring this challenge right in the face. 78% of them, to be exact, are now acknowledging there's a major problem with how they've been measuring success. They're basically admitting out loud that the old ways of doing things, those classic ROI calculations, they just don't work for generative AI. They can see the transformation happening with their own eyes, but their dashboards and spreadsheets just can't keep up.
And this creates this huge tension, right? On one side, you've got investors and boards demanding quick, clean, quantifiable wins. In fact, 57% of them expect to see a clear ROI within a year. But on the other side, you've got the reality of AI, where the benefits are often deeper, more systemic, long-term, and they go way beyond just simple cost savings. And the leaders? They're caught right in the middle of this tug-of-war.
But that doesn't mean they're flying blind. While they're trying to figure out these new metrics, they are absolutely focusing on what they can measure, and the results are pretty impressive. 97% of companies are seeing improved productivity, 94% have boosted their profitability, and 91% are reporting higher quality work. These are real, tangible wins that more than justify the investment, even if they don't capture the whole story.
So, with all this momentum, where does enterprise AI go from here? The data points to a really clear strategy. Companies are doubling down on investment, but with a brand new focus on empowering people to work with these new systems.
And we're talking about more than just prompt engineering 101. Companies are getting really strategic with their training. Over half are using these agent shadowing programs. 40% are running workshops specifically designed to build a human-AI partnership mindset. And on top of that,
52% are creating these sandbox environments where employees can practice and build confidence without any pressure. It's a huge investment in the human side of this new equation.
And that investment, it is growing. I mean, if you want to see just how committed these companies are, you just have to follow the money. The anticipated annual investment has now hit $130 million per company.
That is a huge jump in just a single quarter, and it just shows an incredible level of conviction. Even if leaders can't perfectly measure every little bit of the impact yet, they see the potential and they are betting big, really big.
And that all leads us to this one final thought. We've just watched the year of deployment unfold, where this tech went from pilot to production on a massive scale. But now, with investment soaring and the workforce adapting, the real question is, what's next? Will this coming year be the one where we see true, fundamental business transformation? Based on this data, it really seems like we're right on the edge of finding out.